Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's a good sight to have you all here. So we are joined by Ravi Shankar Etteth, who most of you know him as an accomplished journalist, a cartoonist, and author of books like The Return of the Brahmin, Tiger by the River, and some of you know him as the nephew of writer O.V. Vijayan. So today he'll be talking to us about his new book, The Little Book of Goodbyes. It reflects on his farewells, on the farewells of people and of events. So we'll start.
No, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. Thank you, Ravi, for joining us. So I remember talking to you the first time over the phone, and the first thing that you told me about the book was that this is the most honest book you've written so far. What do you mean by this honesty within the act of writing?
See, a writer likes to, play tricks on his readers. I mean, using language, using imagery, using complicated acrobatics of words and images. A writer, in these cases, mostly try to, bring in readers by impressing them with words or images. So it's a very conscious effort at creating a setting. But in this case, I haven't done any of those things. I haven't done any impressive language, or the kind of imagery which people accuse me of, and stuff like that. I mean, straight narrative, and it's a book. I don't give a shit about what people think about it. I think highly of it. For me, that's what matters.
You've spent most of your career immersed in political journalism. You've done editing, reporting, and commentary. And then when it comes to your fiction, like you've dealt with mystery, myth, thrillers, and all that. But the Little Book of Goodbyes is a distinct shift from all of that. So what made you choose, this as the emotional space of the book?
Yeah, it doesn't sound very original, but one thing which has impacted this decade is the pandemic. There's hardly anybody has not been affected by, COVID. I mean, either through death or through long illnesses or even the after effects of it. I lost quite a few of my good friends in COVID, to COVID, during COVID. And one thing I realized that a lot of people haven't, I hate the word closure, that's what I've explained it in the book. I mean, they really haven't understood why somebody young or vital whom they were fond of, especially why somebody who were they emotionally connected with died for no rhyme or reason, for a virus which came from somewhere, God knows where. So many of them have not been able to properly say goodbye. And in my own case, like I was holed up in my house in the hills when COVID was raging. And that was when my father died. And he didn't die of COVID, but he just died because of old age. So I couldn't travel to Kerala to do his Shradham, last rites. So the last sight I had of my father was on the screen of a cell phone, which is shot by a friend's son. So one is certain things you can't say goodbye to because the opportunity doesn't arise. So I thought that one of the most, do you mind? My arm is gone. Can you just open this one? Thank you. Sorry. So then I realized that, so many people haven't been able to come to terms with the passing. You see, it's something incomplete. A death is something incomplete because it leaves us so many things to come to terms with. But in this case, that incompleteness so vast that I said, okay, the most ignored, not even people don't even realize it, but the most common thing we do is to say goodbye. And it's so much part of our lives. And like once we finish this conversation, and I go home and you go back home, I mean, it's a farewell, it's a goodbye, right? I mean, it would be a pleasant thing. I mean, not to say goodbye to you, but what I mean is, it's a result of a pleasant conversation, right? And, I mean, when the kids who kind of took away my bags, say bye-bye to them. So, the whole thing is so much of parting in life. And I don't mean it dramatic, or parting need not necessarily be something huge and impactful. I mean, it can have an impact on you. Sometimes it may not even have an impact on the person who thinks that's what it is.
Oh, talking about parting, there's this part in the book that I'd like to read. Um, My advice would be to say goodbye to everything that diminishes you and binds you to the passion of others. A goodbye is not always about grief or regret, it is also love. Like the Adamsons letting their lion cubs Elsa free to go back to the savannah and join her kind. The French are wrong. When you say a goodbye, a part of you doesn't die. It changes into something stronger. Is this the way you experience a goodbye yourself?
Yeah, because number one, there's not much percentage in being weak, right? Being strong or weak is a conscious decision. Because the weakest of us can summon up the courage, can stand up with something which is important. And the strongest of us can kind of cave under some influence which can really kind of, upset them. So yes, I think goodbyes strengthen you because you have to feel that space within you which is occupied by that deceased person. So unless you have the strength, you cannot feel it. So surely be stronger.
So there are many characters in the book, like people, like for instance, your grandparents, your grandfather, grandmother, your mother, and your Rajapalayam dog Fang, and then people like Ramaswamy. A lot of characters and events that you bid farewell to. One thing that you told me about the way you wrote is that you've made it very straightforward, very simple. So how do you find the balance between like simplicity and depth without being overly sentimental? Because you're talking about farewells, you're talking about people leaving you forever.
Excellent question, excellent question. Simplicity is a very difficult thing to achieve. And simplicity you can achieve only if you feel very deeply about something. You have to feel very, very deeply. If you're a creative person, you feel very deeply about something to, draw something or write something simple. Because what is that thing? The mathanam, I mean that churning of the thing. So it requires a lot of churning of whatever you're going through or whatever you've seen, which to be distilled. Simplicity is what? Simplicity, real simplicity is not the beginning, it's the end. It's a distillation. So what has happened is that over a period of years, the stories I've heard or the scenes I've seen, and so they have collected within me as a kind of, so as it is, subconscious works on them, and it really distills into simplicity. So then, when they replace, I think sentimental is a good thing, but sentiment is like, compared to an emotional existence, being sentimental is like having a party, I mean, you can wallow in, sentimentalism and, sentimentality or sentiment, whatever. You can wallow in it, you can get self-pity, you can really go out and knock yourself out. But, to be consciously in charge of your emotions, you can be achieved only through a certain amount of strength which comes with simplicity. So that's what has worked in my book, because if you look at many of the narrations of the book, I mean, there's nothing to impress you in that. There's no wordplay, there's no image kind of blazing images, there's no... I mean, it's a simple, straight stories which are being told. The usual, the writers or the artists kind of, tendency to kind of put something to impress them. It's not there. That's simple, straight stories, because the stories are so strong, especially the stories which are sent at that particular age. 2 world wars, independence struggle, Gandhi, then you have the Mapla rebellion, you have Kerala coming in its own, the communists entering Kerala, and the Naxals. It is such, the last decade has been the most powerful decade of our lives. And it is so full of stories. And it's so full of stories which are reflected in my narration in this book. So, to answer your question, I think that should be pretty comprehensive. Thanks. Okay. Oh, I talk very fast. So I have asked Neelima to tell me to, slow down whenever that happens. If you guys can't understand, please raise your hand.
So most of the characters in the book are drawn from real encounters. And then there are also references...
Sorry, most of the characters?
In the book are drawn from real encounters, people who are part of your life.
Correct.
And then there are also references to local folk tales, like there's Odeon, which is very popular in that part of the world. We're talking about Palakkad. And then the flying head of Kazakh. Right?
And that is actually personal.
Yeah, so that's personal. Okay. So how much of my question was, how much of this is actually lived experience and how much of it is fictional?
See, quite a lot of it is lived experience, quite a lot. Quite a lot is fictionalizing, filling in gaps where, For example, this flying head she was talking about, there is this, the story is somewhere in, in Kazakh, Chitali, that area. So my great grandmother's uncle or somebody was this Mantravadiyarno called Patti Veliyappan. Durmandravadiyarno. So he's still spoken about in Kerala. In that particular part, I think people still remember him. And apparently, his death was pretty gruesome because they had to cut his head off, so that and bury the head so that it doesn't kind of rise and he doesn't resurrect. So they had to kind of chop it off. And so the fable is that the head somehow got loose from the grave and keeps flying around at night, scaring people. I don't believe it. I've not seen the fucking head, but apparently it goes around and scares people. So that is an actual family story. Patti Veliyappan is a recorded person in our family. So yes, so that is a laughing head.
Okay.
Go on.
Yeah, yes, and then almost all these stories have your grandfather, grandmother, your mother present in them. Either the stories are about them or they're gently referred to. So what is the kind of influence that they've had on you? You as a person and as a writer, as an artist?
So I believe that we are a creation of our own stories. And our own stories doesn't mean our actions. I mean, there are stories which have been told to us, to which you have reacted to. So, for example, all of you would have had mothers or grandmothers or friends tell you stories. And it actually shapes the way you are. Some stories really shape the way you are. So my grandmother and my mother, and to an extent even my great-grandmother, they were great raconteurs, and they grew up in a time when Malabar was wild, especially my great-grandmother. I mean, it was full of, brigands and, brigands or brigands, I don't know, whatever. And, looting and raping and murdering our land. And that's how they made money. And it was like Malabar, the British rule was there, but so there was no king there. So the Brits were bothered only if they got the money, the collectors, so the taxes were collected. So they didn't give a shit. I mean, they could have, because Malabar didn't come under the presidency, Madras presidency. So you could do whatever pretty much you wanted. That is a very, very powerful but savage period, from late 1800s to kind of mid 1900s. So those stories came from there, which showed me a Kerala which nobody knows about today.
But one person largely absent from the book is your uncle, O.V. Vijayan. Maybe because I'm Malayali that I'm biased, but that's one person we wanted to read about. So was this a conscious omission? What was the influence that he had on you? After we spoke, I came to know that he has influenced you greatly, but how?
See, I think enough has been written about him for me to add anything to it. So that's one reason. Second reason is that he hasn't, any stories, he hasn't kind of really contributed to any of the stories in this. So there was nothing much to write about him in this particular context.
But there's one reference, I think, if I'm not wrong, there's this reference of him writing letters to your mother, inquiring about her health. Were you talking about him then?
My mother what?
There are letters from your mother's brother. But is that the only reference, or were you talking about him?
Yeah, I think so. That's the only reference, I think. Yeah, but nothing more.
Nothing else, yeah.
Yeah, because I really don't, everybody has written about him so much, there's nothing else I can, this is Venu, who is a good friend of mine, so I'm happy that you have. No, good, so much has been written about him, what can I add? There's nothing more I can add.
Okay, so much has been written about him as a writer, as a cartoonist, but nobody has written about him as an uncle. I mean, what was he to you?
Well, the day I decide to write Vijayan's biography, I will do that.
Okay.
For all I do.
But do you have plans to write biography?
Sorry?
Do you have such plans?
No, absolutely
you
not.
You don't? Okay. And then there are also other stories that you missed in the book, right? There are a lot of stories that you forgot to write.
Yeah, I forgot.
You really forgot to write those.
Yeah, I told Karthika, I forgot this. She said, enough is enough. So I said, okay.
What are those stories like?
The stories about a guy, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Palakkad. One of you must be, So Palakkad, Palakkad familiarity. So there is this Tipu Sultan Kota, Palakkad. So, I Mumbai, you'll find a Nalavalaka. So Nalavalaka was, in fact, I didn't know it until recently. This Nalavalaka was set up to honor, I forget the guy's name, who was a bureaucrat, Indian bureaucrat, who was insulted by the wife of an Englishman when they were making a speech, English officer. So in complete humiliation, he committed suicide, and I don't know, it's stupid to commit suicide over any humiliation, but I think he did. So they just set up that Nalavalaka in his honor. So that was a lovely story, which kind of I should have included in the book about Balkat, but I didn't, because I just forgot about it. There were many of them like that which I've forgotten.
You said it took you around 3 to 4 months to write this book. So how was it like? How was this? Was it like triggering? Because it's a farewell book. Was it like cathartic? How was it for you as a writer?
See, I mean, catharsis is a very big word. If you're kind of, if you're kind of emptying yourself of a lot of things, I suppose it's a kind of catharsis. But for me, I realized how much sorrow there was and regret there's one in oneself once you finish writing a book like this, because, it's about a lot of people who are friends of someone who have died, a lot of people kind of, things one has left behind, or, it's extremely kind of painful. And the tendency of the human mind is to kind of, store things away and then move on. So I would say it was cathartic, but it was pretty revealing. I mean, it showed many sides to me which I wasn't really aware of, Basically, how much I enjoyed writing the book.
Yeah, we'll come to that later. Many stories of this book, they have a painterly quality. Like for instance, the story of the flying head, which is almost like a visual narrative. So, do you think your background as a cartoonist, does that influence your style of writing?
I'm sure it does. But see, the cartoonist looks at things in a very oblique way. I mean, if there is something which is a portrait, the guy kind of automatically sees whether the one ears are bigger or the nose is shorter or whatever. So it's like you see, a cartoonist sees things in a skewed fashion, and the skewed aspect of reality. I mean, that's how it sees. But that doesn't come through in this particular thing. I have a very visual mind. I have a very visual way of responding to things. So I think that would have come through in it. Nothing more than that.
And then there are a lot of Sufi tales at the end of it. How did they happen?
Yeah, that's right. Why don't you read out a Sufi story? Let's say.
No, can you read out some of the...
Okay, I can learn to wear my specs and all that. Are you guys familiar with Sufi stories? Come on, somebody must be familiar with Sufi stories. Nobody? 1, 2. Okay, so just tell me. The Sufi is sitting by a lake, looking at his reflection in the water. So the atheist passes by and says, "What are you doing?" So the Sufi says, "I'm looking at my reflection in the water." He says, "I've seen you here looking at your reflection for such a long time. Aren't you bored?" He said, "I am, but my reflection isn't." That is one Sufi story. Then you have this. The Sufi went to a local moneylender for a loan to buy himself a new robe and a darbuka. "I can't give you money. You're a man of God with no possessions. How will you pay me back?" He said, "God will pay you back." He said, "God is not my debtor." He said, "No, but you are his." So I found the messages of this. Have you read these Sufi stories? Are you familiar with these stories? You are? You're not? Because you're talking bullshit, because I wrote them. You couldn't have heard, so sorry. So I found it very interesting to see if I could write a Sufi story. A Sufi story is amazing because, there's a certain lightness of being, which is how God should be seen. God should not be seen as this 1,000-kilo thing. God is light. It's something which is playful and, it can also be pretty angry, but it's something light. I mean, you don't kind of, see God as this heavy dude. I mean, what he does could be really heavy, but, he's actually quite a chilled out guy. So the relationship with the Sufi and divinity is hugely complex. At the same time, he really, really kind of, simplifies it. I'll tell you another one, which is, see, I like this one. The Sufi was standing on his head in the middle of the road. So the essayist asked him what he was doing. The Sufi said, I'm looking at you. Why are you upside down? Here in the exchange, a amused crowd collected the spot. The atheist laughed at the Sufi. You're the one seeing the world upside down. It's a matter of perspective, the Sufi said, getting up. He looked around and said, now we're all upside down. So, I mean, I thought that if there is this great tradition of Sufi storytelling, if they could do it, why can't I do it? So I sat around writing Sufi stories. I ended up writing about 2025. So, I like to crack some things which really intrigue me. And I wondered whether I could write a Sufi story. Now I'm convinced I can. Now I don't want to write them anymore.
Okay. So another thing that I noticed about the book is the references to, of course, we talked about it, caste and class. I mean, you come from a very powerful family, like a family of landlords.
Long time ago.
Huh?
A long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. So, and then your grandfather was with the Malabar Special Forces. And then, so there's this character, Amina. She loved you as a child. I mean, as a young girl, she had a crush on you, she loved you. But then you say she could not communicate this with you because of who she was and because of who you were. So, turning back, do you look at this, do you find this problematic, or do you think, how was it for you? How is it for you now, like turning back? Do you think there was a problem with that,
See, Amina was just a part of a lot of children whom, who were very familiar with. And some of them, we played with. I mean, there were children of, because I was alone. I mean, I was growing up, I was alone. My brother came along later. And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents when I was growing up. So there were not many children in the family to play with. So I grew up playing with all these people. But there was always this, this whole theory that this caste system about, this whole snobbery or hierarchy of the thing. But I must tell you that the origin of that hierarchy is actually money. It's actually money and power. Because my grandfather and my father's and my mother's family were landlords. And when you look at they had huge holdings of land. I mean, they're like crazy guys. So even the relationship between us and people who were poorer, of the same caste or even lower, maybe even higher, was that one of hierarchy. It's more of a class hierarchy than a caste hierarchy. And I believe that caste is actually another form of class, So for me, it was, it's only much later when I turned back and looked at all these children and people I known in my life, then I realized the hierarchy of emotion, the hierarchy of relationships. It's more, it's far more class-oriented than caste.
Did that at any point affect your relationship with your family? Because
I can't hear.
Did that at any point after you grew up? Did that at any point?
No.
No, it didn't.
No, my family was pretty egalitarian. I mean, that's pretty egalitarian because I remember. My grandfather, there was no school there, so my grandfather, when he came back after retirement, he wanted to go, not retirement, I think he was still serving when he said, we'll make a school, on the grounds of the house, So he knocked out a barn and turned that into a school. So he got all the children of the school to kind of study there. But they really couldn't find good teachers, obviously. I mean, a government school, God knows, in Palakkad in 1940 or 30 or whatever, where do you get good English teachers? God knows. But the guy tried. So there was a certain amount of egalitarian. And he was not a reader of Shakespeare, or he's not one of those guys. I mean, he was a soldier. But at the same time, he felt compassionate enough that you need a school. But basically, he did it for my mother. But essentially, the children of the area benefited as long as it was there.
Okay. So readers often, take the stories of farewell in deeply personal ways. What is that one takeaway or that emotional space you wish readers take after closing your book?
What is the emotional space? I couldn't get it.
I mean, the way readers take such books, I mean, of farewells, of losses, of parting in deeply personal ways, right? So what is it that you wish readers take away after closing your book?
I think basically that, nothing is really gone. We all carry it with us, or carry them with us, or carry, so see, each time a memory is born, a goodbye precedes it. It's when you leave something, then or you see something leaving, that's, each memory is a result of a goodbye. So we are all creatures who are filled with goodbyes. And if anybody says you're filled with regrets, I would say no. I mean, it's actually goodbyes. And try to handle it better. You'll be a much richer person if you can really make sense of the goodbyes you make, a more conscious of it, and make part of life. That's all I can say.
Your earlier works, The Tiger by the River, The Return of the Brahmin, they all carry very different energies, right? Mm-hmm. So where is, they're very different from this, right?
Yeah.
So where does the little book of goodbyes sit in your creative journey?
At the top.
At the top, okay. Could you explain how?
Yeah, I told you, it's a very small book. It's a very thin book. It's an intensely personal book. It's impossible for a certain amount of autobiographical, stuff to kind of creep into whatever you write. But the fact of the matter is that, this is a hell of a lot autobiographical than the rest of it. So it is personal. So the first time I'm writing something so personal. And I wasn't really afraid to say, okay, this is personal. Because I was sharing stuff which had been on my mind with people who would like to read it. So it is personal. And I'm not a very personal person.
Okay.
No. As my friend Venu would attest.
So you were talking about the process of writing. What is your writing process like? What kind of work goes into it?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know what these people talk about the process of writing and writer's block and all. I know what they're talking about. You got a story.
Is it like a very laborious thing? Like do something that you genuinely enjoy? That's all.
No, not for me. You just tell a story. You just say what you want to say. I mean, that's what a book is about. And and what Q&A? I don't know any people. And sorry, I was saying something. I forgot. Yeah, the process of writing, I don't think it's very complicated as far as I'm concerned. Because I would say something. I'm the sort of a guy who does something, and if it has to be done, move on with it. I mean, that's my nature. I don't dwell on things too much. So I have a story to tell. I tell the story. So, I try to make the language as clean as possible, when you look at a rewrite. I like to kind of plug the holes and everything has to fit. So that's the only revision I do. I really don't think I'm so sorry to be like this. I don't think being a writer is a big deal. I think you're just telling a story. You just do it and get the hell out of there. That's what it is. A journalist trained. Absolutely, both of us.
Okay, so you're one of the writers who has talked about AI, right? You've actually embraced it, if I'm not wrong. So, and it's in your Rhapsody you wrote, one of the poems, that you used AI to create images. So, from a writer's point of view, does it make you insecure? Does AI make you insecure? You think it's yet another avenue to explore?
See, absolutely not. If you ask me, do I use AI in my writing? Yes, I do. Once I finish a story, all I do is feed the story to ChatGPT and say, let's check out spelling mistakes, check out grammatical mistakes, that's all I do. And I found that ChatGPT delivers better than any copy editor. Just excellent the way it kind of locates mistakes. And I don't think AI can write a book, yeah. I don't think AI can, write a novel which can, touch your heart. Sorry, it can. No, it can. But I don't think AI can write a Crime and Punishment. I don't think AI can write 100 Years of Solitude. It just can't. Because you got to feel gutturally, and you should have that in memory, to kind of paint those emotions very strong. So I don't know why people are upset about AI. AI is something which can be a great ally. It's not something to be afraid of.
You have used it in this book as well, right? Have you?
Yeah, I've used this for my drawings, for illustrations. Yes, I've used it. The cover is AI. I did this with AI because I like exploring new domains, and technology advances is one of them.
So you don't think artists are, one of the most affected people?
Absolutely not. If you look at You look at the brush strokes, Raja Ravi or even Picasso or any of the brush strokes are so strong and they're so individual that, say AI can never get that power on a canvas. That's just out of the question. So even as just a robot to kind of do it, and program it to kind of draw like Picasso, you program it to draw like Picasso, but not as Picasso. So I don't know what people are upset about.
Okay, so one last question. If anybody in the audience has a question, you can ask this afterwards. In case you get an offer to pitch one of your works to be adapted as a film or web series, which one would you choose?
It's already been chosen, but actually.
Which one is it?
Yeah, but I don't think I got a lot of money, but they haven't. I don't think they'll make.
Can't talk about it. Okay.
No, I can talk about it. It's the Brahmin, which was bought by I think 3 producers, one after the other. So.
Tell us about it. No.
No, the Brahmin. It's because the scale was so high, and the budget would have been at least 100 crore plus. So very few. I mean, it was just bought before the pandemic, and very few people have the kind of money to kind of put out on a, they don't have that kind of money. So I got the advances. I'm a happy man, but didn't come out. See, I'm very unsentimental about my creations. I write a book, I forget about it. I am not attached to it as my baby and all that kind of shit. I don't have it. It's gone, it's gone. I mean, let's move on to the next one. So yes, I wrote that book. It was picked up by a couple of producers. Good, I'm happy about it. So I move on.
Okay. Thank you. So does anybody have a question?
Benu knows me too well, so.
So then we'll wind up here. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.